Everyone for coming to the first meetup of the Austin Blockchain Collective in this decade, in 2020. We are continuing as we did for the last couple of years. We'll be back here in this room at Capital Factory on the third Monday of every month. Apart from March this year, when we won't be, because that's the middle of South by Southwest, and I suspect they'll be using this room for something else. And I suspect most of the people who usually come to our meetups will want to be doing something else anyway. So, but apart from March, third Monday of every month. Tonight we've got a great presentation by Dan about the topic of Web3 and something related to Web3 called Polkadot, which he'll tell you all about, and implications of Web3 for things like internet privacy, and beginning to fight back against the rot, if you like. I believe it's been called, that big tech has exhibited on the current internet. But Dan will get into all of that. So my name's Pete Harris, by the way. I run the Austin Blockchain Collective when I'm not running it, but I spend quite a lot of time on it these days. Who's been to one of these meetups before? Okay, so a few have not. So you guys will be very bored by this next bit. If you do nothing else tonight, then leave knowing that we've got a website. Then you have taken away something useful. AustinBlockchainCollective.com is where you go to find out everything there is about the Austin Blockchain Collective. Not only is there information on the website, there are pointers from the website to things like our Twitter feed, our LinkedIn group, our blog on Medium, and all manner of things. So you really want to know that. Our Twitter feed is ATX Block Collect. Our hashtag Austin Blockchain. If when you tweet, you add Austin Blockchain to your tweets, someone magically retweets them and likes them for free. So it's worth doing. So we're also on Medium with a blog, and we've got a LinkedIn group, which is kind of pretty lightly moderated, so good place for you to post things about what you're up to and what your company's up to. Very quickly, again, since most people here have been to the meetings, this is what the Austin Blockchain Collective is about. It's really about helping to continue to push Austin as a place where blockchain happens. Still around about 120-ish companies in town doing things related to blockchain and crypto, which is, I think, still a large number of companies around. So that's kind of why we exist. You can find this mission statement on the website, so I'm not going to bore you with it. But I am going to not bore you with these companies. As I say, there are 120-ish companies in Austin. These companies I love completely because they give me some money. And they give me some money which allows me to spend a lot of my time doing things on the Austin Blockchain Collective. And that's including companies, including my own company, my wife's company, more about her in a minute, 212, who are one of the founders, and a couple of companies who are new to that list, one of which will be Web3 Foundation and Polkadot, which Dan is here to represent and present, and a company called Vitro Technology, who is a company broadly in the sort of IoT securing IoT devices space. And I'm sure they will be presenting at a future meeting as well. They're getting very involved in blockchain. We would love that list to be all over that screen and have more companies on it. And if you feel like you want to support the collective, get in touch with me and I'll let you know how you can do that. And it does not cost very much money at all because I'm cheap. So, big thank you to Capital Factory where we are right now. Not only do they host this meetup, they probably host about 4 or 5 other blockchain meetups, and they also provide the collective with space and facilities here because we actually have a broad partnership with them and help them with some of their programs that they undertake, especially with some of these companies whose logos you'll see on the window, and they help us by introducing us to some of these companies and generally acting as a great partner in terms of sort of a two-way interchange of connections and information. So love that we got together with them a few months ago. What next? We have within the collective a group of companies involved in the healthcare space, and a little while ago we got them together and took them to see Dell Medical School, who's a big teaching hospital. They're really a big data company with a hospital attached, and they're getting very interested in blockchain. So we began a dialogue there between local companies and a teaching hospital, and we decided, rightly or wrongly, that we were going to put on a conference together, which I'm spent most of the last month putting together. Going to happen February 26th. Going to be a great event. Already about to announce the full program, but the keynoters include the Dean of the University of California, San Diego Health, and also IBM's global leader for healthcare blockchain. So, and probably got about as many as 10 startups in the blockchain healthcare space who are not the usual boring names that go to every other health conference. So, should be a good one. And will be anyone who wants to go to it, that's the price, $295, which is really cheap. So I'd love to see everyone there. There's actually going to be at least a couple of discussions there about Web3 and healthcare. So going to be a very interesting day. And finally, South by Southwest is coming up middle of March. If a couple of things about South by Southwest, there is some blockchain programming at South by Southwest. A little bit Dan will tell you about. There are likely to be quite a lot of unofficial events happening. We know about quite a few of them. We will know about all of them because we're like that, and we'll be including them all on a blog which exists right now, and that blog you can get to from our website, and also I'll post it in the notes for the meetup as well tonight. And also, if you want to go to South by Southwest as a badge holder and get either an interactive badge or a platinum badge, I can get you one of those for about a 30-ish% discount. And if you want to do that, you just drop me an email and I'll tell you how to do it. I'm sure I'm forgetting something, but before we bring Dan up, I always like to, in these meetups, do in fact, I did say I was going to talk about my wife. My wife is at home with pneumonia, which she says she caught from me. You know the expression, a happy wife is a happy life? Well, I don't have a happy wife. So more or less as soon as I introduce Dan to you, I'm going to grab my things and go off home and sort of make medicines for her and things. She said she was going to tune in on live stream. I suspect she's actually probably watching sort of Frankie and Grace on Netflix instead. But if you're out there, darling, I'm sorry, I'm coming home. So anyway, before we bring Dan up, shout outs. Shout outs is where anyone in the audience at these meetups can say something. What you're doing, if you're hiring, if you've got something new, nice of you to pop in, Richard, and just grab the microphone and speak away.
Hi, I'm Owen from Austin Science Club, and I just want to invite everybody to a meeting Friday on an introduction to quantum computing. As at UT Austin, it'll be after work hours around this time. So if you go to Austin Science Club, you'll find it very quickly. It's a meetup group open to everybody. We're going to have Daniel Mahler run some Python code, and he actually has access to IBM's physical quantum computing system. At least he did last time he did this. So if this is a topic that interests you, come by Friday, 7:30 p.m. It's at the UTC building, which is where neuroscience and psychology happens, or just go to Austin Science Club online.
Great, super. Any other shout outs? People looking for a job, people hiring, people working on a project? Here we go. Good, super.
Hi, I'm Dilip. I just moved to Austin a week ago. I've been working in blockchain in the Bay Area in decentralized exchange. Before that, I was thinking about capital markets, so crypto markets has really been my focus. Good to meet everyone. Feel free to say hi.
Great. Welcome to Austin. You did the right thing. Whereabouts were you in the Bay?
Right in the downtown, Vidai.
Right. Austin's far better. Hey.
Hey everybody, I'm Niran Babalola. I helped launch a DAO, basically a decentralized organization called Panvala. The thing that we do is we take in money from sponsors, and then there's a community that decides what Ethereum infrastructure to spend it on. So if you're interested in being involved in a DAO, helping spend some sponsors' money, sponsors like Unstoppable Domains, Helium's given a talk here before. Basically they make donations and we spend it on projects in the Ethereum ecosystem. So if you're interested, let's talk.
Are you still going to be running the Ethereum happy hours?
The happy hours, not so much, but the developer meetups, there's one on Wednesday.
Right, good. Okay, any more shout outs? Or are we done? Richard, nothing? Really? You're quiet. And a quick shout out for me, the next meetup. This meetup is going to be February 17th, which is President's Day, but who cares about that? I believe it's going to be on the subject of stablecoins, and a particular one homegrown here called Pignet. So I'll be putting that on the web very soon. Okay, I think I'm basically done. I'm going to ask you to come up, Dan. Dan Reeser historically from a company called WanChain, a wonderful company, and now from an even more wonderful company called Web3 Foundation. I'm going to give that to you. We're going to have to take this away and put your thing in, and then...
Cool. Well, there's a few familiar faces in the room. I don't think I've met most of you. I've lived in Austin for a couple years, working in blockchain like Pete mentioned, but my name's Dan Reeser. Hopefully I can get to meet a bunch of you after this. But let's see.
Turn that on to HDMI.
Today, I'm going to be talking to you about kind of a little brief history of the web and what's led to Web 3.0, which is kind of taking form right now. I'll also get into some discussion around Polkadot and blockchain and how I think that that's going to help contribute to kind of a more private, privacy-focused internet culture, or a more kind of trustless internet where we're not relying on, we're not giving our data out to these big tech companies like we're seeing now. So before I get started, I just wanted to see who here has not heard of Polkadot, just so I can get a feel for the crowd. Okay. Who here doesn't know what a blockchain is? Okay, we at least have that. Is Pete grabbing? Yeah. So I'll just get into the first slide and we can figure out the slides as we go. But just a quick background on me. I'm from Indiana originally. Graduated from IU and went to Eli Lilly for 4 years, where I spent 4 years working in the pharmaceutical industry. I got into brand marketing there, which led me to start pursuing my MBA. But as I was going to get my MBA, I took a brief internship in crypto at OneChain, which is what brought me to Austin. Decided to back out of the MBA and go full-time into crypto. So I spent a couple years, or about a year and a half, running the marketing for OneChain here, and learned a lot, had a great experience. And then following that, I just in about September of last year took a role with the Web3 Foundation, mainly working on Polkadot. In addition to Polkadot, we have another network that I'll get into called Kusama. And I'll explain more about kind of the dynamic of the Web3 Foundation versus Parity, the two kind of organizations that are really stewarding the Polkadot project. So like I said, I'll be talking a little bit about Web 1.0 and what that means, Web 2.0, which is kind of where we are now and what's really opening people's eyes to the importance of privacy, privacy of our own data, and how the data is actually being used by these large tech organizations. And then getting into Web 3, also sometimes referred to as a semantic web, where data will start to be interpreted by machines without the need for kind of human interaction. So you may know Web 1.0 was kind of the read-only web, where people weren't easily able to contribute information into the internet. It was kind of read-only. We were able to scan through these web browsers, but it was really the early days of the internet. But this brought consumers into the web after kind of the start around the 60s or 70s. Then with Web 2.0, we started to be able to easily write into the internet. So with YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, now my mom, my grandmother even, can contribute data or information into the internet. But Web 2.0 enabled a lot of very positive change. It connected the world. It kind of broke down barriers between countries. It really shrunk the size of the world. But at the same time, it gave a lot of power to a very small group of individuals and organizations who own all of that data and can do whatever they want with it. So in the end, Web 2.0, where we are today, Web 2.0 has made you and me the product instead of focusing on technical innovation. So the tech boom is no longer a tech boom. The tech boom is actually now a marketing and advertising boom. So now people like me, hopefully people like you after today, will start asking more questions about privacy and what happened to our privacy. Since our choices are limited, and I want to talk today about choices, since our choices and platforms are limited, we have actually been forced to kind of donate our data. So the browsing history on our computers, the location history on our phone, even our healthcare data, even people like Sky who use these sleep wearables, they're tracking your sleep patterns even. It becomes pretty scary when you think about it. But in 2013, things started to change a little bit when Edward Snowden came out, who recently wrote a book that I would recommend. But Edward Snowden came out, obviously, most of you have probably heard about this, but really shed some light on what the NSA was doing and how the NSA was collecting data from Americans, but also people all over the world and using it using it for surveillance without the people's knowledge. A quote that probably my favorite quote from the book was, "No matter the place, no matter the time, and no matter what you do, your life has now become an open book." And that's coming from somebody who's working in the NSA back when he experienced all this. Another thing that I would recommend you guys look into is the New York Times Privacy Project. They've been doing a great job covering this topic. And this image that you just saw is actually a real image from around Grand Central Station in New York. And an anonymous source actually gave them these files that show all the different cell phones that were being tracked in New York. This is what opened my eyes to the issues around privacy last year when I watched the Great Hack documentary on Netflix, which I highly, highly recommend watching if you haven't. But around Cambridge Analytica. So I put up here, these are all the elections that Cambridge Analytica was involved in around the world. It wasn't just the United States. They were hired by political parties in these countries and literally altered the course of history by using the data of the people in these countries in order to kind of manipulate them to vote for the candidate that they wanted them to vote for. This here on the bottom left is a real slide from Cambridge Analytica's deck that they were selling to politicians, and they call it persuasion digital marketing. So in the US, which is what came up around 2018, tying back to the 2016 Trump election, they scraped Facebook data without people knowing using kind of I think it was a survey as the front end, but in the back end they were collecting what they claim was 5,000 data points on nearly every American. I think the exact number was around 90 million. But they were able to target people down to the individual county in places like Michigan, Ohio, that really mattered for the election. And Brittany Kaiser, the whistleblower from Cambridge Analytica, who was also in the Great Hack, she said, "We bombarded them through blogs, websites, articles, videos, ads, every platform you can imagine, until they voted for our candidate." So they were blasting anti-Hillary things if they were being hired by Trump. For other campaigns, obviously, there was different targeted ads, but pretty unbelievable when you start to dig into it. But the scariest part, yeah.
I just want to say, I'm a psychology professor. I've looked at a little bit of this. Causation is very murky here. We just don't actually have hard evidence that voter behavior did change as a result of this. It's perfectly reasonable to think so, that it might have, very well. The models have not come so far really showing causation here. Just heads up on that.
Yeah. I guess I'm not stating that there was causation. I'm just really relaying facts on like data points that were collected. I'm not necessarily saying they did impact the election, but they were getting paid a lot of money, and I would guess it was kind of, people considered it to be working. But yeah, no claims on my end. So that leads us to now. It's an election year. It's a major election in the US, and another scary thing to think about is if Cambridge Analytica was making so much money and being so effective at this, yes, they've been shut down, but who's to say that there's not another organization out there doing the exact same thing that will be hired again for the 2020 election, whether it's known to the public or not. So that's just kind of something that I'm going to try to keep in mind, that I'm going to tell my family just to watch out for. Just when you're on the internet this year, just be aware of what's being put in front of you, and just remind yourself that it may be being served up to you for a purpose. Next is the rise in surveillance capitalism, or facial recognition. Who here has heard of Clearview AI? So two or three, four people. This came out on Saturday. This is a new organization that has been hired by 600 law enforcement agencies around the world. They are selling a facial recognition app to these law enforcement agencies. They claim to have 3 billion photos on the right. That's compared to the FBI, who had in their database 411 million. So it's 6x of even the FBI's database. These photos were scraped from Facebook, from YouTube, from your Venmo profile picture, from other websites. And in the bottom left here, this is the CEO actually demoing it and showing that if you take a picture of someone, it'll instantly pop up with every other face that matches in their database tied to that face. Another kind of scary thing, almost like a RoboCop kind of scenario, is they actually claim that this data can feed into an AR headset so that if a police officer sees someone, they can instantly see through the glasses who that is, what their name is, where they're from, and their information tied to them. But the list goes on and on. You have Google purchasing Fitbit to associate your Fitbit data with your Google record. And the Chinese government creating their own cryptocurrency. Ideally, cryptocurrencies in countries would be built in a Bitcoin-esque way, in a decentralized manner with an open ledger, but I would venture to guess that China's cryptocurrency is going to be centralized in a fashion that's actually probably a dream scenario for China. If they were to outlaw cash, you essentially can track every single transaction of every single citizen in their country. So this is going to be an interesting topic to watch play out this year and next year. But some of you in the room may be saying similar things to what some of my family or friends have said, which is that I don't really care about online privacy. I'm not doing anything wrong. I have nothing to hide. This is a quote that I wanted to include from Snowden to kind of refute that argument. So ultimately, saying that you don't care about privacy because you have nothing to hide is no different than saying you don't care about freedom of speech because you have nothing to say, or that you don't care about freedom of press because you don't like to read, or that you don't care about freedom of religion because you don't believe in God. Another way to get across this point, if you have an iPhone, just take out your iPhone. A lot of you probably haven't seen this, and I've discovered this over the holiday. Go to your settings in privacy and scroll down to location services. And then all the way at the bottom, go down to system services. So it's five layers deep, and then you'll finally get to significant locations. So at the top of that page, you'll see that Apple says this is end-to-end encrypted. This data is owned by you, or something to that effect. But it's pretty unbelievable to see that your phone is literally a tracking device, just following you everywhere you go. And then everywhere you've been most in the last probably, 3 to 6 months it might show, you'll see it right there in your phone, which is pretty unbelievable. For me, I was on vacation over the holidays, so it shows that I was home in Indiana, my home in Austin here, and everywhere else that I've been over the holiday. It's pretty scary to see how that all works. But finally, people are starting to wake up. Who here has joined the Delete Facebook campaign? 1, 2, 3 people. I personally haven't, because there's no option for me to connect with people who some of the people that I'm connected with on Facebook. There's just not a good alternative. I'm not willing to delete it quite yet, but that's kind of where society is going. People are starting to wake up. This is also a study from the Pew Research Center back in 2019 that shows that around 62 or 63% of Americans think that they can't go a single day without data being collected on them. But the good thing is there are solutions that are starting to pop up to help us take back our privacy. On the left, you may have heard of Signal. This is the #1 most recommended encryption messaging app to move away from iMessage. So this is something that you could consider using if you don't want the government or tech companies reading your messages and using that to serve you ads. The second best option is WhatsApp, which most of the world uses. Americans, a lot of us use iMessage still, but WhatsApp, believe it or not, is actually end-to-end encrypted, but it's still owned by Facebook.
I heard it has issues.
That's what I heard too, actually today. So,
Signal doesn't. For sure.
Yeah. Another solution that has gained a lot of traction over the last 5-10 years is HTTPS website encryption, so that our browsing data is secure. Thanks to people actually like Google, the adoption has actually been pretty great with HTTPS. We're at about 94-95% of the front-facing internet being encrypted now. Google is also making steps by banning third-party cookies. This just came out about a week ago, and they'll be rolling that out over the coming months, which is it's a good sign for consumers, not as good of a thing if you're a small online advertising business. Regulation. So a recurring theme that I think we're going to start seeing this year and next year is bans on facial recognition. So the West Coast, of course, started first with San Francisco, Oakland, these kind of cities banning it, and now the Boston area is starting to catch on. So you've got Cambridge, who just banned facial recognition just 5 days ago, along with a few other smaller cities that I haven't heard of, but I think they're near Boston. Of course, we all heard about the California CCPA that just passed recently, GDPR. The U.S. Freedom Act is what came up after the Snowden revealing. So regulation is also going to be a very important solution for us. And here's where I'll move into the blockchain discussion. So decentralization is another solution that is needed, but blockchain is the means that will help us get us there. And I'll get a little bit deeper into this. So this is what will lead into the Web3 discussion, which is more so focused on building a decentralized and private internet that also is referred to, like I mentioned earlier, as the semantic web. And blockchain is not the end-all be-all for privacy. It's not the end-all be-all for Web3. It's one component. So that's what we'll talk about today. Other components of Web3, of course, include IoT, AR, VR headsets, artificial intelligence, machine learning, and so on. So Web3 in a blockchain context is about providing a second option for consumers and enterprises. So if I were to delete my Facebook, what is my second option? If I want to use a decentralized Facebook, how do I do that? Web3 is also about bringing power back to the individual, giving us ownership of our data, removing these very powerful central points of control, and enabling financial freedom for people who weren't previously able to participate in the global economy. Like I said, Web3 vision is grand, and blockchain is just one component of that. This I know you can't see. This was actually created by Multicoin Capital, who's based in Austin. But just to give you a picture of all the different components that are part of the Web3 stack, and here's some organizations that are associated with each section here. Polkadot being this right here, associated with layer 1. So we're kind of a base layer 1 platform that I will get into. This just gives you, it's impossible to read, but there's a lot of action going on in the Web3 space.
Is something like this publicly available, or at least
Something like,
Peter, could you make a note or what?
These images, basically.
oh, yeah. This, I can send the deck out to you guys after if you want, and I can also send links to these. So these, if you just Google Web3 stack multicoin, that will come up for sure. But I'll send the deck out afterwards so you guys can have all of this. So Web3's decentralization aspect really started taking off with the invention of Bitcoin back in 2008. And then Ethereum in 2015 that added smart contract functionality. But the reason why I came to Polkadot is because, in my opinion, this is really the third major launch of the industry. So we had Bitcoin, Ethereum, but blockchain still couldn't communicate with one another. There's so much traction on Ethereum, but it's all refined to just one blockchain. So there needs to be a way to connect at least Bitcoin to Ethereum. But after that, every blockchain essentially, private blockchains with enterprises will need and want to connect into a bigger blockchain ecosystem. And Polkadot is going to make that happen very soon. So Polkadot was founded in 2016 by Gavin Wood, who is the former CTO and co-founder of Ethereum. He also invented Solidity as the programming language for Ethereum. So they've been working on this for a few years now, and we're about to launch Polkadot very soon in 2020 in the coming months. Polkadot is a scalable, interoperable, and secure network protocol. So it's that layer 1 protocol. And it's a foundational building block of Web 3.0. It's not going to solve everything, but it's a very, very important, necessary piece at the base layer for Web 3. The Web 3 Foundation that I work for is based out of Zug, Switzerland. We're a nonprofit foundation focused mainly on cryptographic research. We have a very strong research team. In addition to that, we have my team, community and growth, collaborations, communications team. We have Web3 grants that we give to a lot of developers who are building on Polkadot or with Substrate, which is the software development kit. On the Parity side, this is a very developer-heavy organization of around, I think a little over 100 people based in Berlin. They've built Substrate, they built Parity Ethereum client, they've built Zcash clients, they've done work with Bitcoin, and they do a lot of work with Polkadot collaborations as well. The Web3 Foundation, we have around 45 people. I'm one of 3 in the US. We have 1 in Tennessee, 1 in San Francisco. Everyone else is either in Switzerland or Berlin for the most part. So of that big chart that I showed you, why Polkadot out of all these other platforms that are kind of in the same space? So I mentioned interoperability, or the ability to connect other blockchains to one another. This is a huge and unmet need in the industry that we will solve once Polkadot launches. Another is scalability. So this week we were talking about scalability, and our founder Gavin said that the scalability of the multi-blockchain setup with Polkadot, he expects to be around 100 to 1,000 times the throughput of the current Ethereum ecosystem. Security, we call it shared security or pooled security. This is a huge differentiator for us because what that means is if you're a development team, say you're based in Berlin, you're a group of 5 guys that are looking to build build a blockchain or a parachain on Polkadot. If you're building that with another blockchain ecosystem, you actually have to go out and recruit an entire set of validators or nodes to run your network. And those nodes also have to go out and talk to investors and gather millions of dollars to get enough value backing your network to make it secure. With Polkadot, you have all these validators that are already existing in the network. And the moment you bring in a new blockchain, you connect, plug and play, and you automatically have an entire network of validators that are validating your blockchain without having to waste time going out and recruit validators and have them go out and recruit money. It's a huge weight off the development team's shoulders. So that's kind of the pitch from our website. I wanted to also bring in an external opinion. So PureStake is one of our validators. They're doing a ton of great work out of Boston. And this was their CEO's top 4 reasons for why he chose to work with Polkadot. So it's the ecosystem and leadership. It's the flexible underlying framework, so Substrate. This is the software development kit for building parachains or building custom blockchains that can plug into Polkadot. This is what Parity is developing. Scalability, like I mentioned, and then the security, like I just walked you through. There's a lot on this slide. I'll just go through some high level. So similarities, I thought some of you may wonder with ETH 2.0 is kind of in the conversation now, Polkadot coming out soon. So what are the similarities and differences? One of our keys to success, one of our biggest focuses of the year, of course, is developer adoption. We need developers building with Substrate and building on Polkadot. Luckily, Substrate makes that very easy and very inviting for developers to start building in the ecosystem. Similarities between the two, both are expecting to be multi-blockchain kind of architecture. We call it parachains. We also call it sharding sometimes. Ethereum's calling it sharding. Both networks are proof of stake consensus. Biggest differences are probably that Polkadot has on-chain governance that's working today on Kusama, which I'll walk you through next. And Ethereum will continue to be off-chain governance. Polkadot will have, so for all these blockchains that will connect in, which we're calling parachains, there will be an auction to actually get one of those slots. So there's an auction, everyone will essentially compete for that slot, and then once you win that slot, you basically put down your deposit and you retain that parachain slot, which will be limited. That is how the kind of fee structure would work on, or will work on Polkadot. ETH 2.0 is still going to be gas or metered based, so that's where they ran into the scalability issues before. So we think the parachain setup should be effective. So I'll be quick on this. This is just really getting into the weeds on how the tech is actually set up. So I mentioned parachains. These are the individual blockchains that will connect into the Polkadot ecosystem. All of those will connect into the core relay chain. So this is what connects everything in Polkadot. There will be bridges. So there's actively teams building bridges to Ethereum right now. There may or may not be a team working on a Bitcoin one, but there will be soon, if not. But we're not forgetting about the existing networks. We know we need to connect in with the DeFi community on Ethereum that has so much great work going on. Bitcoin, of course, Zcash, and the like. The validators, like I mentioned, plug and play security. Validators are already there. We have 150 validators on Kusama that are already active and working today. And again, sorry, I'll explain Kusama next. And collators are basically watching each parachain and bundling the information and sending it back in to the relay chain. So Kusama, I mentioned it twice. Kusama is essentially a live version of Polkadot. It's already been launched back in July, August timeframe of last year. But Kusama, we call it Polkadot's wild cousin. It's an unaudited, unrefined, experimental version of Polkadot. So we threw it out there, basically wanted to see what would happen. We recruited validators. Like I said, there's 150 validators running the Kusama network now. Kusama already has proven Polkadot's code works. It's proven that the on-chain governance works, as you can see here. So this is the council that's basically the governing body of the Kusama network. And then here, this is the polkadot.js UI. If any of you want to mess around with it, just Google polkadot.js, and this is how you can get in and kind of mess around with Kusama. Anything else yeah, so that's that. So these are all the projects that are building with Substrate. Right now, logos looks nicer than this slide, but these are Substrate and Polkadot projects that are being built right now. So we have everything from, we have a DAO parachain. So I know we have someone in the room that's interested in DAOs through Edgeware. They're going to be launching very soon. There's work going on with gaming parachains. There's work going on with DeFi. The beauty of it is that with parachains using Substrate, people will be building specific blockchain specific for a specific use case. So if you're doing gaming, you're going to need different kind of characteristics or traits in the network than you would with finance or insurance or anything else. So these projects are all building or have built and are waiting for Polkadot's upcoming launch. So just to tie it all back, decentralization technology, the adoption will really just bring us a second choice. The way I kind of see things working out, and you may or may not agree, is that I think that there's probably going to be two worlds that are running in parallel. There will probably be some connection between the two, but I don't see blockchain or decentralization like taking over Google, Apple, and Facebook in 10 years. I think they'll run in parallel, but the beauty is that hopefully soon people will actually have a second choice instead of all of us being forced to donate the data that we're giving all these organizations today. And how does Polkadot or other blockchain platforms help us get to this world where our data is more private? Polkadot right now, we're building for developers. So we're building a platform where we want the world's best developers to come build applications that will then be sold out to consumers. So we're not going to be building consumer-facing applications right now, at least, but we want developers who will come and build the next decentralized Facebook or build the next decentralized Uber, Airbnb, and the like. So instead of just talking about it, this is an actual example of a team. One of our Polkadot ambassadors, who's a developer, he's based in Kiev, Ukraine, and his team is building Subsocial, which is basically a substrate-based social network platform. So not just one social network, but people can actually build their own censorship-resistant social network on Subsocial. So it could be a small group in a community in China. It could be a larger group in the United States. But this is a really cool project that's being built right now that showcases the substrate technology, and that will be able to connect in to the greater Polkadot ecosystem once that's launched. So hopefully you learned a little bit and kind of opened your eyes a little bit more to the importance of privacy through this talk today. Here's a few action items that I wanted to just suggest. I mentioned the Great Hack documentary. Privacy Project, so at Privacy Project and at EFF on Twitter are really, really great Twitter feeds to follow on the topic of privacy. The New York Times, I've never really followed them, but they're doing an amazing job on privacy right now. And then suggestion for using Brave as your browser, Signal for messaging. I need help in the US in general, but I would love to have anyone who's interested in Polkadot to be an ambassador. What that means is you basically just, people who are passionate and want to be a part of the launch. We have around 125 right now from 37 countries, and they're doing things, about 40% of them are developers, so they're people like Alex building Subsocial, but also working on community building. So I've talked to Pete, we're talking about getting some kind of a Web3 or Polkadot meetup together in Austin. Definitely can't do that by myself, so if anyone's interested, would love to talk about that. Polkadot and Kusama on Twitter, there's our handles. Anyone who's more technical, so substrate.dev, Substrate and Parity, they've done an amazing job of making it easy to onboard into the ecosystem. People like me, I have no coding experience, but they make it easy for anyone from my skill level up to people who are developers to come in and do tutorials and learn how Substrate works. And then last up here, Gavin Wood's coming to the US for the first time in a couple of years to speak at South by Southwest in one of their featured sessions. And he's going to talk about what's called less trust, more truth. And he's going to be talking through the his Web3 vision. So that should be something that if you're going to South by, definitely check out. And I wanted to end with this to just kind of wrap things up, which is a quote from Gavin. And this says, Web 3.0 is an inclusive set of protocols to provide building blocks for application makers. These building blocks take the place of traditional web technologies, but present a whole new way of creating applications. These technologies give the user strong and verifiable guarantees about the information they are receiving, what information they are giving away, and what they are paying for and what they are receiving in return. By empowering users to act for themselves within low barrier markets, we can ensure censorship and monopolization have fewer places to hide. Consider Web 3.0 to be an executable Magna Carta, the foundation of the freedom of the individual against the arbitrary authority of the despot or the power figure. So that is a wrap. If you want to email me for any reason, contact me on Twitter or Telegram. Those are my handles. But appreciate the time. Thank you guys for coming, and let me know if you have any questions. Yeah.
Does that mean it's
Yeah, I don't know so the question is around the .iou on CoinMarketCap. That is just for people, I guess, who were in the initial sale who have like a ERC20 IOU for redeeming for the DOT token once it launches. There's people that have that out on the market. That's not the mainnet token at all. Once Polkadot's mainnet launches, then yes, the utility token will be live and out there. No date, just because development timelines we can't ever predict. There will be most likely kind of a phased rollout, so that could start happening very soon, is really what I can say.
What's the quickest overview you could give of how the on-chain governance works?
That's a good question. So from my knowledge, I think, let me follow up with you on that. So there's a council that gets elected. They go up for vote, essentially. And anyone who's a token holder can vote for whoever they want to be on council. There's also Polkadot.js helps if you get in there and actually see how that works. But anyone can make a proposal. The council has more of a vote than like an individual token holder. But people can make a proposal for whether they want to change something in the technology, or even if they want to create some kind of a DAO or anything like that within Kusama right now. But there's tons of articles that I can send you, so that will get more into kind of the technical details. I'm on the marketing side, so.
I think you mentioned that there were a finite number of validators in the Polkadot, kind of what you call the ring. But
Yeah.
is that intended to grow over time, or how's that?
Yeah, so a couple things. So I referred to a finite number of parachain slots. So like if you want to build, or if a team wants to build a custom blockchain that would connect into the relay chain, there will be a limited number of those. I'm not sure of an exact number at launch. But to your other question about validators, that really depends on kind of the network's ability to handle more validators. So I know with Kusama, we started with, I think 30, and then governance proposal came up, let's increase this to 50, passed, then that gets incorporated into the back end. More slots open up, so then more validators can get in, and now more governance proposals have passed, and then that's gotten increased up to 150 now. So there's been talk about the ability to potentially get that up to 1,000 down the road, but I can't make any promises on that. It's just what I've heard.
How are you addressing monopolies of the validators, essentially? So the bit names of the hash power. So at the end of the
Yeah.
day, network security really is about who owns those validators. And if secretly I own half the validators,
Yep.
it's a problem, right?
Yeah. So if you look at like Tezos, for example, or Tezos is a good example, or Cosmos even. There's a lot of these networks are becoming pretty top heavy because users come in, they want to stake, we call it nominating, but they'll come in and look at the Explorer and they'll just go straight to the number 1, number 2, number 3 validators, and then those guys just get huge. Polkadot, the way that the validation was set up, the tokens get automatically dispersed for balancing. So if I'm going to nominate to say 5 different validators, so that I am kind of insuring myself against potential slashing if one of them goes down, those 5 validators, if one of them is very powerful in terms of their number of tokens that they hold, most of my coins will probably go to the other 4 to help balance that out. So the automatic rebalancing will help the 150 actually in time become almost all even, because unless the user stakes with just one person or one validator, the system automatically kind of rebalances to even things out. So we think that will actually help with the issues that other networks have been seeing with like the top heavy validation set. Any other questions? Yep.
So this is basically based on
Stake, yeah.
Okay. So what kind of tokens should one own to do that?
With Polkadot?
Yes.
So the native token of Polkadot is called DOT. It's not live yet. The only people who have it now are the ones. No one actually has their actual dots yet. There's some people who have these IOU tokens if they participated in previous public sales or private sales. But if you're a validator or if you want to stake with a validator to participate in the network, the DOT token is what you would use. For Kusama, it's the Kusama token. In the exact same way, it's used for validation, it's used for governance, it's used for staking, which we call nomination. So those are the two kind of tokens that run these networks.
Okay, how about if somebody wants to build an application? Do they need to own some tokens?
It depends. So certain teams that are coming to Polkadot will want to build an entire parachain, so an entire custom blockchain. Say that's built for gaming. So the group of people who are building that parachain will definitely need to have dots in order to win the auction to win that slot. So if they put down the deposit and win that parachain slot, then XYZ Gaming parachain is live. Then if there's another development team who wants to come and actually build a game on that parachain, they will not need to have dots to actually secure that spot because they're leveraging the underlying parachain that team already won with that auction. Does that make sense? Cool.
Domain specific.
I don't think it's been really set yet. I don't think it's going to be a lot at the start, but I don't have a number. Any other questions? There's also T-shirts in the back if you want one, and a little pamphlet about ambassadors because I really would like to have someone join. But I really appreciate the time, guys. Come up and talk to me if you have any other questions, and have a good year.